Haven't been filming for a couple days, but I have been out here a few hours every night getting some of this interior wiring done and getting some of this aftermarket stuff integrated. One of the biggies, of course, was getting his GPS locator installed in a nice safe spot. The other giant biggie is getting the alarm system integrated. That has been quite a bit of work, but I'm getting there. So not only am I, feeding everything off fuses, because that's one of the things is I really hate having all those extra fuses lying around. Getting things run down to where they got to go, because some of the alarm stuff will be in the console. So I've made a breakout harness for that. Here are, these are the wires that I've tied into the harness. So, oh, and then I have actually started building some of the dash harness. We've got the horn tied into the actual horn relay. We've got the lights from the alarm tied into the actual light switch. It's doing a very nice job. Any splices are soldered and shrink wrapped. Other than that, any chance I get, I've been using double pins. So even though there's already 2 pins for park lights on an ignition, on the headlight switch, obviously one already had front parking lights, one had the rear parking lights, so I just tied into a new connector and added 2 wires to one of the pins, which is perfectly viable. Been going through all of this. This is all the stuff. When you don't have good documentation with the aftermarket stuff, it takes a little time to go through, figure out what you need, what you've got to have. Do you have to protect things with diode? What do you got to do? And how to get things fused. So one of the things is, in fact, here is those connectors come to the front. This is just the courtesy light. And then somewhere under here is the one for these gauges. But then in this module, he's got this field sensitivity thing that has to be central mounted. Otherwise, I wouldn't have it in here. And he's got a tilt sensor that has to be mounted flat. Well, these are a perfectly good spot for that. Easily accessible with 4 screws, but not so easy that somebody could just get in there and cut it real quick. And then everything's all running all nice, tidy, not like before. So we're slowly getting all these things fed in and run through. Very few wires will actually wind up going through the firewall, but a few will. Obviously, the 2 wires for the cutout, or the 2 cables for the cutouts, will go through the firewall, and the reverse lights will go through the firewall. The siren, that's going to get mounted really difficult to get at, but I'm going to have to bring the trigger for that out. Everything else I think is going to the fuse block for the most part. I don't think there's a whole bunch. And then, of course, all the sensors, for the Dakota, all of these cables. So I have a feeling all of these things are probably going to go through the speedometer cable location, or at least a good chunk of them. I'm hoping that we don't actually need that hole, but I don't want to close it yet. And that one's pretty easy. That one, just a little cap off grommet would work. So as you can see, we're getting there. The wiring gutters are in. All the wiring is run nice and tidy. The carpets are starting to relax pretty nicely. Obviously, I haven't cut for the console yet. That's probably coming up pretty soon. I haven't decided if I'm going to start attacking that or if I'm going to start attacking getting the dash in. But I'm almost done installing the alarm system, which was a lot more hassle than I'd hoped, but it's exactly what I thought it would be. So that's where I'm at right now. I just hadn't done an update in the last couple nights, so I figured I better show you. Well, it's been a few hours more, and let's see, I'm done with everything except the siren part. I haven't been doing any engine-based stuff of the alarm. The Dakota stuff is going to get a fancy loop so that it rests up here, but so that I can pull it back down for service or to add a light or whatever. We're getting there. There's a few more that we're going to have to add here, which we'll discuss in just a moment. But we've got the console mounted, and it could use a little more cleanup. That's fine. But having that mounted, that goes a long way. So, and as you can see, the carpet's really relaxing in. I don't like to do the seat bolt holes and the seat belt holes until I'm just about ready to install the seats. Although the rears will get done before we put the seat in, obviously. But, let's see what's left to go on there. Okay, I've got to do a fuse for the cutouts and for the power points. And that's probably about it. I haven't decided if I'm running a separate fuse for the line locks yet. I've got to look up and find out how much current that actually draws. So, a couple more little things to work out, but I think I've got most of the aftermarket stuff loomed in, and I'm exhausted. I think, well, if I count up last week and this week, I've got probably a good 20 hours into this harness already. You know, not counting, putsy learning stuff, but yeah, I've probably got 20 hours of work in here, and I know it looks like spaghetti. Anybody that doesn't know how wiring works is going to say, well, that's a big mess. And yet, right at the end, when it all goes together, it's going to be nice and tidy. Don't worry about it. It's going to come out really nice. ShopDog says, I can't believe you haven't been shooting video of this as you've been putzing and working. So, I guess he's shamed me into it. I will show you where I'm at. Let's start back here. So, I don't know where this beauty plate is. Bartley can put that on. I'm not too worried about that. The thing I'm worried about is the only thing left in this rear body harness now is when we drop the tank, I've got to run one wire down for the fuel pump, plus it's ground, which we're going to ground in here as well. And I got the trunk switch set up. Now, the one that the car had in it was no good, so I ordered, and it was one of the ball bearing style, so I ordered an actual mercury switch, which honestly was only another like $1 or something, and then ran it just like I would have run a light, if we had a light. And then, it's big, but it's hidden inside the metal there. And honestly, I don't think you would ever notice it. Most people won't notice it. It is safe. It's out of the way. And when we had the meter on it, right here is the trigger point. So that, we've got that adjusted pretty well. So I'm pretty happy back here. I've been working up here. One of the things that did come in fact it came in today on a Saturday, is my power station. So let me grab a light because you're probably not going to even notice it. So right here, and I left the fun blue front panel. That's our power point for either extra 12 volt points, and I've got 4 USB points, USB-A's. Now see that sticker that's over there? Well, when I painted the whole body, I left the sticker that came on it that protected that. That's actually a voltage readout of what it's seeing on the voltage. And the downside is it's pretty shiny red. So I took that away. We left the sticker on it when I painted it. I had to take all that apart and put some brackets on there so I can mount it. And I gotta tell you, it seems pretty well made in there. There's a lot of protective circuitry for the USB. There's an on-off switch. We're gonna have to make sure that never gets bumped, or oh my god, remembering that that's there will be fun. I've got that wired into the harness, so that's over on that plug there. So those will go in. Obviously the stereo stuff's all now back in and is looking pretty good. I don't remember if I filmed the fact that the dash itself is in now, but obviously it is. And I'm just finishing up the wiring for my switch panel, which I'm pretty sure I took some footage of, but maybe I didn't. It's been crazy busy lately. So here's my switch panel right here. And so like for the line lock, so that you don't accidentally leave it on all the time, I've got that. And then an annoying green light will light up, and that will remind you. And the line lock is, oh, I don't know where the, oh, I do know where it is. It's over here. The line lock then, so that will interrupt. Line lock comes over to the shifter ball, and then hitting that, that will, if that switch is armed and this is depressed, 12 volts will go to the line lock. That's the only way that'll happen. So now we won't have accidental applications or anything weird happening. It's always good to have that safety feature. In fact, here is an example of how. So that's just engraving plastic. This is a thinner piece. I did a couple different examples. So that's engraving plastic. And then this housing I just 3D printed on my wife's 3D printer. So, and I did it in a hurry, so it's not perfect. You know, I'm not real good at designing these models yet, but I'm getting there. And I think this is going to look and work really well. Obviously, considerably better than all the switches drilled into everything that was in here before. The labeling will be nice as well, so that you know what's actually happening. That's always kind of convenient. Let's see. So I've been doing that. Dash in. I've got just a couple things left to do on our auxiliary harness. So the fuel pump is done. The zoom back is done. The alarm system is done. The power points just got done. I'm literally working cutouts. That's this yellow wire here is its power. That will be the last thing coming off of our auxiliary harness for now. And he does have one ignition, so one switched ignition that can handle up to 20 amps available for future use if he needs it. So I don't think that's a terrible thing. But what this does is it moves all of these secondary things to fuses in the fuse box. And that's really, really handy. I hate buried fuses. So the only wiring, except for, you know, I'm still working all the wiring there out, that I have left to do in the car then, you know, so like these are the switch for the Dakota, you know, that's up there. So those plug in. These come from the cutout stuff. I've got to get the cutouts wired in here and to ground for their power. And then it's all about getting that line lock run. So you can see here is the power feed coming around, and that will come in here and then go out to the car. So I've got to get that run. Once that's run, there's no reason I can't put the ashtray and glove box back in and get the glove box light installed, which it took a while, but I found it. ShopDog says I'm still boring. So I did find so here it is. So, and you can see somebody had done something. So anyway, we've got all new wiring. So I just unplugged that, and then believe it or not, that wire just pops out. No big deal. So we've got that. But this switch and lamp are, you know, you can get them. I mean, it's a Camaro. You can still get them, but they're not free. So that's kind of where we're at there. So I'm kind of hoping to wrap up the rest of the interior harness wiring today. Obviously, I can't hook up the line lock to the shifter until the transmission's in, but I can run that last connector and lay it down in there. And we have the new boot and everything, so that's going to work out pretty nice. It's been on back order for a while, but it finally came. And then the other thing I have been up to is we canceled the Holly fuel pump. It's just not going to show up anytime soon, which is a shame because his tank isn't that old. And I mean, what do you do? So same thing that anybody watching any of my videos knows on Tanks Kit. You know, this has a GPA 4 in it, which is a Walbro 255 pump, standard LS1 regulator. And we happen to know for a fact, because we were on the dyno, that the atomic will work this way, because that's basically what we did there. So that's going to work. I don't have obviously hoses on here. I just am mocking out what connectors I want. So Here is our sender, and I actually have it swinging here when you look at the shape. And that's convenient with these tanks, is if you know what's going on, see the shape here. So now I'm going to be measuring in this plane here, you know, not straight over because I don't want slosh to affect it, but it's about here. So, and you can see, did my measurements. So when it's empty, it reads 1 ohm. When it's full, it reads 92 ohms. So that's way within my 0 to 90 criteria for the gauge. These are going to get a 2-pin weather pack, and then they're going to come out around and up. There's that connector going through into the firewall, and then it'll get grounded here, you know, where all those grounds were there. And then of course that fuel pump relay is right here, so that wire will come down and around to feed the fuel pump. So there's that. You know, it sucked having to do that, but what do you do? Sometimes you don't have any options. This is always a nightmare in first gens, finding a place to mount the vent. I have not found a consistent thing for first gens because everybody's exhaust system's a little different. So you always got to work with the car you're in, you know, especially if the cars are lowered. You know, if they're standard ride height cars on leaf springs, you know, you can usually place that above the differential. But, you know, they start lowering them, or they start going to fancy aftermarket independent rears or anything like that, you lose that area. So it's still always one of the issues with these cars is getting them vented properly. I can't prove it really makes a giant difference, but you really don't want the fuel cap, especially in a 69 because of how low the filler neck is. You don't want that puking pressurized fuel out the back. At least on 67s and 68s, this comes up considerably higher, and the fuel filler is way up here. So that neck actually acts as part of your venting, and you can do a vented cap there without too much issue. Some cars have vent systems from the factory that are basically loop lines that go up higher than the carburetor and come back down out of the trunk. In fact, 68 Impala happens to be one of those cars. And I've used a similar setup in cars in the past, you know, bent my own and then bring them up into the trunk, bring them higher than the fuel injection system and bring them down. You just, yeah, you gotta watch safety here. So if you can, try to get the fuel tank vented in a safe manner. Let's see. Oh, this is already becoming a rambling video. So that's 11 minutes in, and you know, the MSD box, I keep looking around and I think it's going to wind up where they always are, right there over the heater box. Not seeing any better options. Here's the line lock. That's what gets the 12 volts on the line to keep the front brakes in it pressurized. So yeah, this is where we are right now. All right, ShopDog, let's see what we got going on here. So it's actually been a few hours, but you'll notice there's not too many lights left, or wires left. You've got the one for the glove box lamp, the one for the cigar lighter, and the one for the roll control, because we can't put that in until the shifter's in. Other than that, everything is nice and tidy. All run up all nice. So you can see that all came out pretty good. Oh, there, let me, so you can see in there. Maybe you can see in there. And then let me come around to this side of the car so you can kind of see that. Some of this stuff, that existed. I ain't monkeying with that. That's speaker wires. That's not my job. But you can see we're all pretty good. Got nice courtesy lights down here. Everything's nice and safe. Everything's run well. Here are all the cables for the console. You know, for the gauges, for the courtesy light, for the alarm stuff, and for the roll control. That's all right there. Then the concept here is when he wants the roll control, which is that switch on the shifter, he can turn it on. This light would now be lit. So he would know that if he held that button, that roll control would work. That's going to be open his cutouts, close his cutouts. And then for the Dakota, you get a little switch interface. So this is switch 1 and switch 2. Or I've got them backwards and I got to flip the leads. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell. So we'll find that out in real time. And I was going to put the glove box and ashtray in. But honestly, I should wait until he's got the dash all tidied up, because it's going to be a lot easier to put the dash pad in before he does that. So I think that's about all I'm doing tonight. You know, sun's going down. Time to go make some supper. So that's where we're at right now. Well, that's getting closer because the tank is out. But Bartley's buddy came up. He drilled a bunch of holes and started yanking it all out. So I had to weld them up. And now he's doing the grinding. So it turns out Bartley is going to have that fixed. But in the meantime, this is getting really, really, really close. The dash pad is in, and I'm getting ready to do the ashtray and the glove box. And then until the tranny's in, that's about all I can do here, because that's all got to go in after the transmission. All right. It's nice and quiet now. It was too many people in here yesterday, so I couldn't really film. It was too noisy. I did try to film one little section. But here you can see the dash is looking pretty nice. I'm real happy. I know we got to do another vacuum. It's a problem with this. And we are ordering new visors. So once you start kind of looking at them, you can... So I hadn't noted that before. So on the next Summit order, we'll get them. They're under $100. Glove box is in. Ashtrays in. I mean, all of this is looking good. I have knobs for the radio, so I'll go ahead and take care of that here shortly. But the dash pad, you know, they only fit so good. I mean, even when they were brand new, I don't think they fit all that great. But, you know, Jim was just looking for the illusion. As long as it looked close enough, they were happy. You really saw that in 67 and 68 with the bezels along the fenders. Holy crap. They're a pretty bad fit. And then, didn't know this was happening, but Bartley's buddy came up yesterday, drilled a bunch of holes, yanked out a bunch of dents, and put his first skim coat on there. So next time that guy's back, we got to roll the car out so he can block it. And I really don't want that done in here. It's going to be quite a mess. So, but we have a winch. Makes getting the car in and out actually really not that hard. So it'd give us a chance to clean some things and maybe clean underneath as well. We'll see. You can see here that I have started the light harness. You know, just before everybody got here yesterday. I'm all the way up to this whole location here, which I've got my reclaimed fitting. And of course that's the far side. It's not plugged in right now, but and normally they do run across the inner fender right here, and there's a couple little pop straps, but with everything he's got modified, it just seems safer and simpler to run it up over the arch. No biggie there. Yeah, so I got to work on that. Some of that stuff I can start working on getting wired in. Now we're at the get the light harness done, get some of the accessory stuff done, get the engine harness started and loomed at least to the windshield wiper and brought out, and then the engine can go back in, you know, and then we'll work around that for lengths there. The engine harness usually doesn't take very long, especially when half your connections are all the sensor wires down there for the Dakota. So the engine harness isn't the hard part. Doing it neatly down by the starter and making sure everything is heat resistant is usually the part that you fight. But outside of that, that goes pretty quick. The light harness always sucks because you're working in a terrible location. You can get your hand in there, but it's not fun. But at least on these F-bodies, there's only one headlight, so a little less work to do. And let's see, the turn signal, I've already taken care of that. So those are ready to go into the light harness. I don't know if I Showed you guys the trunk switch. The old one was bad, so we got an actual mercury switch. And then to hide it, I wrapped it in my black Tessa tape. As you can see, that's tucked up real nice, out of the way. Pretty happy with that. We did get the tank dropped, so there's no fuel tank at the moment. And I can get some wiring done and get ready for that to go up. So, in fact, it's sitting over there. It still has a little fuel in it. So this tank will go up sometime this week. Maybe Thursday. We'll see. As soon as the main chunks of the harness are done, the brakes can go back in. So, yeah, once the engine harness is done and terminated as far as the windshield washer, or the windshield wipers, then the brakes can go in. And it'll be a little easier to deal with that without the engine in. So, I'm not overly enthusiastic with how some of this was done. I want to take a better look. But, like I was reminded, it did work. It worked fine. So, Bartley was happy with it. So, I'm not sure how much time I want to spend on changing that plumbing just because I have slight OCD. This finally came, the backup switch. Not overly enthusiastic about this, but the 68 and 67 Camaro style backup switch for these is prohibitively an expensive modification. I can't justify how much money that's going to cost to add that. So, you know, you do hit a point where you can't just keep spending someone else's money hand over fist. So, that's kind of where we're at right now. You know, I felt bad they had to get the lights out for them to do this. Like I said, wasn't even aware that was happening. You know how it is, though. You got to do things when the guy that knows how to do it is available. On the upside, I got a chance to bust out the welder and do a little bit of plug welding on the hammer taps. So always take practice any chance you get. It's the only way you're going to get any better at it. So my cute little welder, I can't believe that thing is still going. But it's been a pretty good investment. I think I've had this thing for 15 years or so. Works great. It's not pretty, but it sure feeds nice. So it's kind of where I'm at right now. I've got a whole bunch of video backlog to catch up on, and you know, it's been a heck of a couple of weeks at work. So, you know, because unfortunately I don't actually get paid to do any of this. This is just because it's fun. So, all right, ShopDog, he says he needs a treat.